Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Process Podcast. So, we have a bit of a formula that we generally recommend. I'm looking at Liam and he's like, shit, don't put me on.
Do not ask me right now.
Do not throw me under the bus here. Tammy, you back yourself on the formula?
I can start fluffing for a little while Liam thinks of it. I kind of remember the standard, but
Me too.
I think it's just really important to understand just how much of the human body is compromised of water. Is that
composed?
Not compromised.
Compromise if you don't drink enough. Did you not all
It
just
is-
pick up water when we start talking about every time we talk about hydration? I'm like, where's my glass?
So I think it's actually like 60 to 70%. And then I remember like getting all the stats and stuff together with some of the posts that we had put up, and it was like the brain was a huge percentage. It was
like 20% or something.
Not Liam's.
Ooh, more.
Yeah, definitely not mine.
Bone was 20 to 25%.
Bone,
Yeah, so I think it was like the brain was something between 75 to 90% or something really high, and then muscles were like the next thing, and it went down this list, and I was like, we are water. Like that is a lot. So
We are
of
walking
course,
water.
yeah, we are walking bodies of water. In terms of the gold standard, I can't actually remember the number. Do you remember it?
I think it's pounds and body weight divided by 2
in
Yes.
inches.
in fluid ounces
Half.
is a general. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
that is a massive generalization. Obviously, you live in a sweaty climate. If you're a sweaty person, if you exercise a lot,
Yeah.
that's going to skew all those numbers.
Yeah.
But I think it's always nice to have, something to strive towards. 'Cause I would say that the majority of the world is under hydrating.
For sure.
And I guess the question is, like, why is hydration? Obviously, number one, the body's made up of a lot of water, but why is hydration actually really important?
It helps with a lot of things. I mean, it's going to play into our ability to recover. I'm sure.
Circulation, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Transportation of like
transportation,
nutrients in the body. I mean, like, obviously electrolyte balance comes into this as
Yeah.
well, and that's kind of another conversation. We know that dehydration is a massive inhibitor on things like physical performance, mental acuity, mental retention,
Yep.
sleep. Essentially, it's kind of a central governor for everything. So, what we're saying is,
I'm
yes,
pretty sure there was like nearly no processes that happened without it.
Without water.
Yeah. That's wild.
super important. Okay, so let's talk about now our experiences. I'll start with you, Charlotte. We're gonna go
To my
anti-clockwise.
right.
As in, like, how much water I drink?
Well,
a
so
day?
what's your general like protocol with water? Yeah, you drink up, Tammy, because you realize you're underhydrating.
I think, like my relationship with waters or hydration has always been really good. I've always lived in a tropical Asian climate, where you're sweating a lot. I've always been encouraged to hydrate, that kind of vibe. I definitely think I always have my bottle of water with me, especially on the coaching floor when I'm working. I think more recently I've had a little bit more education behind, like the salts and the electrolytes that you're putting into your body, and it's not just water that you need to. And a lot of people actually can almost overhydrate themselves, that you're not actually absorbing what you need to, and you're just kind of flushing out water, and it's not doing what it needs to be doing in the body. But I would say my, routine with water is usually pretty good. I think like my big bottle here, I usually have maybe 4 of them a day, my working day.
4
Yeah.
bloody
And
hell,
it's
mate.
the first thing I do in the morning when I wake up.
Same.
It's the first thing. So it's like that, little thank you I say to myself in the morning. I have my glass of water, I'll go in the shower and then get on, and it's the last thing I do
drink
before
the
I
shower
go.
water. Is that how you get your 4 bottles in?
Yeah, and then I have my glass of water, I go in the shower, and it's the last thing I do before I go to bed as well. I feel like it's just like a cleansing. Yeah.
Nice.
And then at work.
That's why
I'll
she
have-
doesn't need to eat, because she's so bloody full on water. she actually
That's
can't.
probably why I don't look tired, guys.
Maybe.
Because I just am hydrated.
Yeah, true.
That's so interesting.
But
I like that.
I think also a lot of the signs I know when I'm stressed out, my body actually retains like a lot of fluid, and being educated on the signs, like how that can play in with electrolyte balance and everything like that to flush everything out of your joints and your fluid systems and stuff like that, I find super fascinating. And it wasn't until like our physio here actually kind of gave me a little bit more education behind that and what I can be doing when I know that I have a lot of water retention in, especially my lower body, when I'm feeling stressed or when I'm injured and stuff like that, and how I can play about with the salts and stuff like that to help that flush out. It's good.
Nice.
Yeah. Me?
Tamarind.
Well, since I practically eat all my meals, it's practically salt with a piece of meat in it or something. I definitely I drink a lot of water in a day. I I think it's obviously much easier being in the industry that we're in. Like I carry a water bottle with me everywhere. Like having a bottle in your hand's kind of normal. I'm not like walking into professional meetings like, I don't know, doing anything weird. Maybe it is weird. I don't know. But I think it is one of those things that when it's on you, you really remember it. When it's not around you, you kind of forget it. Or for me, I'm like, oh my God, my mouth is like the Sahara Desert right now. But yeah, for me, I tend to probably drink about 3.5 to 4.5 liters of water a day. And in all honesty, I don't really drink too many other things apart from it. I really like it. And I think that now that I've lived in slightly more humid environments, I've definitely seen how important it is, like Lotte said, to have things like electrolytes, because I found there was a point where I was like, I am drinking so much water and I'm peeing, but I'm thirsty. Like, this is wild. I could not counteract it. So yeah, it's been really interesting to learn about, I guess, making sure you're replenishing things that are being lost by the body, because essentially that's what it's looking for, right? Which doesn't necessarily just happen through filtered water and water bottles.
And are you two sippers or are you gulpers? Like, do you down your water at once, or do you are you constantly sipping throughout the day?
I'd say I constantly sip throughout the day. I know that if I'm gulping and I'm thirsty, I'm past the point of that I need water. So I'm just in that. It's just like a habit. But like Tammy said, it's so easy, especially in our jobs and everything, just to constantly have water. Yeah, good old sippers. I don't really drink during training though.
Yeah,
Like
no, neither.
whilst I'm training, I'm like, no.
No, neither. Yeah, I would say I sip and I gulp. It's dependent on what's happened. Like today, I think I was thrown off a little bit with my routine because I went and got a wax and I didn't take my water bottle with me. So when I got back, I like downed 2 of them and then tried to eat my lunch. My stomach was really sore, but generally probably sip.
That was one of the points I was actually going to say. You like gulping water is not actually that good. Like we just had the mic's problem, but we're back on. They say when you go and pee and like your pee is that clear, like that's a sign that you're actually overhydrated by you gulping that water so much, and it's just coming out as water, right? In terms of like my relationship with water, I think it's pretty good. I drink a lot of water. I also drink a lot of electrolytes.
Yeah.
But I was reflecting back when you guys were talking and we were talking about like childhood and stuff. When I grew up, like water wasn't really like something that we really valued in terms of at the table. We'd be drinking like Diet Cokes. We'd be drinking like even full fat Cokes or whatever it was. Like it wasn't really a thing until I started actually like exercising and moving. And I was like, shit, I don't want to drink that Diet Coke. I want actual water.
That's so
And that changed my relationship. Yeah.
That's interesting.
How many bottles do you get into a day?
Must be at like 4.5 liters. I drink a lot. That's the same as Lotte. First thing when I wake up, I'll drink a glass of water.
Yeah, nice.
But I'll also have a cut off in my water. I'll have
that.
like mine's is like 6 o'clock because I know if I drink water after, though, I'm going to wake up and pee in the middle of the night and not good.
There's his superpower.
Interesting. Yeah, I would say I probably drink about 4 liters as well. I would definitely say I think I've formed some form of mild addiction to electrolytes. Like I've gotten,
Really? You just like the taste of it and not actual
I just really
water?
love the taste of electrolytes, and like Tammy said, I used to drink a lot of water and just constantly feel like my thirst wasn't quenched. And so moving to electrolytes, I mean, obviously we live in a hot climate. I love to step outside, and generally when we're stepping outside, I'm probably sweating a little bit. I would say I'm not an overly sweaty person, but I still sweat, and like Hong Kong is one of the most humid places in the world. But I do also get a lot of liquid in. I think people forget that you do still get liquid in through other avenues. Like when you think about people in the fitness industry, even though coffee is technically a diuretic, like you still retain a lot of the water that you have in a coffee. And like if you're having a coffee in the morning, and if it's not an espresso and it's actually like a long black or something like that, then you do actually get some water intake. So for me, it's like my greens drink. I have a green shake first thing in the morning. That's my first dose of water, and then my next dose of water at the moment is a green tea. And then it's kind of, drinking. And today I'm really struggling because I don't know where the hell my bottle's gone. So I'm drinking out this puny little glass, which means I can't also mix my electrolytes in because it doesn't stir. So I haven't had my electrolytes today, and I'm actually thirsty right now.
Same.
And so I'll be probably...
I don't have any to give you.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I have a protein shake post-workout, and there's water in a protein shake as well.
Foods.
And foods as well, for sure. So I would say, like, generally speaking, I have a pretty good relationship with water. I think going back to, like, as a youngster, same as you, Liam, like, I would just drink a lot of soft drinks all the time. That would be, like, what I'd have with lunchtime. I'd have probably, like, one of those little box drinks, which is just a ton of sugar. Getting home from school, I'd probably have at least 2 cans of something. and then like maybe have a bit of water with dinner. But that was when we were told like drink water with your dinner. So
Yeah.
like I would have a mouthful of food, mouthful of water, and obviously that's not
Yeah.
the best thing either. So I think we're all pretty good hydrators.
I think it's super important, like just going back to when we were asleep, how you're brought up as well, like the culture behind, I guess, hydration or water, like, and where you were brought up. We were both brought up in Hong Kong, and it's hot, it's humid, you're constantly reminded to drink water and things like that. I know definitely in my family it was like, if you're outside, you come in and have a cup of water for every whatever you're doing. But somewhere, if you grew up in the UK, if it's in a cold climate, you don't want to drink water because you're bloody freezing all the time. And I remember like when I went to university in the UK, if I drank hot water, I just wanted water, but I was too cold to drink cold water. People looked at me as if I was absolutely crazy.
The Hong Kong kid in you.
Yeah, but people always, you see kids, they just have juice boxes, they have Lucozades after sports. They're not encouraged to have water,
I genuinely like think as a kid I didn't like water.
I didn't like water.
Like
I didn't like
mum
water
and dad
either,
like to
no.
say drink water.
but I also didn't like much else. So
I'd do anything to not have to drink water. So I'd make it like I'd drink a shit ton of Ribena.
Yeah.
Like cordials, obviously soft drinks, box drinks.
I just used to drink water all the time.
No,
this is why she
like
looks.
Yeah, this is why you're winning.
That's the key, guys.
Yeah. We're going to keep on going,
Okay.
and this will obviously be split into two parts.
Sure.
So next we're going to move on to stress management.
Oh yeah.
Hefty old subject, this one, because
like
it can
this
mean a
one.
lot of things. So what do we mean, Tamarind, by
What?
stress management?
Stress management is essentially ways that you can implement specific tools or practices to potentially reduce the amount of stress you feel or perceive.
Nice. I think a very important first step is like recognizing what contributes to stress. So we typically refer to three things, which is we have like environmental stress, we have chemical stress, and we have physical stress. And basically we have lots of things that fall within those buckets, but essentially what most would define as stress is anything that's bringing the body away from homeostasis.
Yeah.
Homeostasis being like where we are most comfortable, where our body
Balance.
wants to always come back to.
Yeah.
So anything that pulls us either way out of homeostasis is essentially a stress. And what our body will then do to bring us back to homeostasis is respond to that stress, which is what we call a stress response.
Yeah.
And so essentially, I think when I talk about stress management, I'm thinking number one is like recognizing what are the contributors of stress in your life. And then, recognizing how our body responds to stress, because everyone responds so differently to stress. And then essentially going back to our mission, which is, trying to help people find a sustainable way to thrive, essentially, is like life is then just about a constant balancing act of recognizing when stress comes in and trying to get yourself back to homeostasis. And the individual who probably spends more time in homeostasis will probably expand their health. What was the word?
Your health span
Health
versus
span.
your
Your health.
lifespan.
Yeah. We'll
Close
win in
the
the health
gap.
span. Exactly. Liam, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think exactly like you said. It's just like it's important to recognize that stress will always be there.
Yeah.
Like we cannot control other stressors. Like it's going back to that quite like we talked about before. It's trying to control the controllables. Well, there's some things you just can't control. There's some stressors that will always be there. But it's just learning to have tools and frameworks in place to help you navigate that stress and help you manage it just a little bit better than if you didn't have those tools and frameworks.
And I think also, stress is not necessarily a bad thing.
That's
Agreed.
literally
You're
what
going
I
to
was
say
about
that.
get.
Like, let's think about training. Like, we apply stress on the body because we know that if we were to adapt to that stress, we're stronger, fitter, faster. We also know, like, one of our values, which is courage over comfort, is like lean into stressful situations because we know that the lessons that will come from most likely the failures and the struggles are what helps us to grow and evolve. So I definitely will never, and I have been at points in my life in my coaching career where I've recommended like stay away from stress as much as possible.
Stress
but
doesn't exist.
yeah, stress doesn't exist. But at the end of the day, like you need stress in your life, but it's about it's managing healthy doses of that stress.
And there's
Yeah.
good like emotional stress as well. There's positive emotional stress that when you can come out of it, you're like, whoa, like, you were up so high for so long, like whether that's, family interactions or something that brings you so much happiness, like you're in that state.
It could be just watching your favorite sports team score a goal.
Yeah.
And everyone's like,
Nice.
But that's a
Tamarind.
roller coaster. That's like a tricky one because it could be favorite sports team and that's just high and low stress all day.
yeah, but it's not necessarily a bad stress.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
a stress.
not bad.
I mean, there is actually science to say that good stress, something like elation or being overly happy or being really excited, and we shouldn't really class them as good and bad stress, but let's say like negative stresses like fear, disappointment, depression do have different chemical responses on the body. So whilst both of them bring us out of homeostasis, I would say that the latter has a more negative long-term effect on the human body. And the stress response is going to be very different to the other ones.
But I definitely think people are in this mindset of stress is negative, and then they stress themselves out for being stressed, and it's just this cycle.
Our perception of stress. So my question to the group is, what is the biggest stress contributor in your life, and how do you navigate it?
Being me.
My biggest stressor, being around Tammy.
I am a highly stressed individual, which I guess is why I've spent so much time in this area, in this field, getting to understand myself. And because I've seen how much great stuff it's done for me, I would love to be able to share it with everyone else, The biggest stressor for me, I think previously, if I could like retrace the steps a little bit, probably was competing. It was probably like being an athlete. The pressures that I put on myself, the expectations I felt other people had of me, the desire to want to be perfect and do all the things right. Right now, I feel like I've really found homeostasis in a lot of aspects of my life, in my career, in my training, as a person. I feel like I'm, in a way, to just say it nicely, at peace. Right now, I'll be completely honest. I think that one of the biggest stresses in my life is my relationship, and it's difficult. Like, you have someone who's living overseas and it's been a long time. Not to say it's like necessarily a huge bad stress or anything like that, but that right now is what's relevant to me. It's probably the thing for me that causes the most dysbiosis right now.
And I love that, like, our stress has changed with the seasons of life.
Yeah.
And, obviously it was a loaded question I asked, because, that if I asked that question 3 months ago or 3 years ago, like, it probably would have been very different answers. So thank you for sharing. Liam.
You're welcome.
When we talk about those buckets of stress, so we've got emotional, chemical, and physical. Well, I think like physical stress definitely for me is the gym. Like, it is a stressor that we are putting on our bodies even sometimes 6 days a week. So I've got to manage that properly. That's why I'm a big advocate of these basic lifestyle essentials when we're talking about sleep, etc. I think like retracing back when Tammy was saying, I was reflecting back, the biggest stress that I probably had when I was growing up was trying to be someone that I wasn't. Right?
Me too.
So it was like,
Liam.
That's what was causing me so much anxiety, so much fear, because I was trying to live someone else's life.
Yeah.
Spot on.
Agreed.
Me too.
That just spoke to my soul.
Agreed.
Like, actually.
Lotte.
How do I follow that? Jesus. I think the biggest stresses to me, whether that's now or in previous states, have been the things that are most important to me. I think that's, whether that's in my journey now or growing up, again, it's kind of finding out who you are and living authentically you. And at times it's stressful because you're trying to be someone you're not, whether that's you're living up to expectations of competing, or relationships with your parents, or friendships and things like that, your
social norms,
that kind of stuff. That's like your environmental stresses. I think other things that bring good and bad stress is also coming in here every day. It's my job. There's the physical stress of training, there's the stress for showing up for my clients. I am very guilty of holding other people's stress onto me, and I've definitely tried to put things in place to not let that happen. But I want to show up for my clients. I want to show up for a group class, things like that. It's a good and a bad stress. I think, relationships outside the gym, social interactions, they're all stresses at the moment, but like you said, they change just like the seasons do. And finding that balance across the board and knowing what you're in control of, sorry, I couldn't hear myself for a second, is okay. And there's always going to be up and downs of the roller coaster.
So it sounds like there isn't one particular stressor.
There's not necessarily.
Every stressor in life is Lotte's biggest stressor.
I'm going to list every day.
Yeah, there's not necessarily one like massive thing at the moment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I have two. I just realized. I really do. I have multiple, but the two main ones for sure. We have a lot of changes coming up. Some good changes. People that are listening, there are some good things coming your way. Really positive stress, but stress nonetheless. Lots of brainstorming, lots of meetings, lots of like my head not stopping because that's the way that it works. That's definitely been difficult to navigate because I've had to have, it's a trade-off. I've realized everything in life for me when it comes to stress is a trade-off. So if my energy is going into that, I really have to pull back on something else. So right now my training's taking like a little bit of an easier turn. Maybe not today. That was bad, but
yeah. I know that when I'm stressed and I can't like fall asleep, I keep thinking about something. So if I'm, the two main things that I've been thinking about are all the changes here and you know, like, and all the conversations that we've had, all the brainstormings, good and bad. But also, I don't have my own apartment at the moment, and that's stressing me out.
There we go. We
There
got
we
there.
go.
She
There
told
are
us the
stresses.
real answer.
Now we got it.
But that's also, I've come to terms with that. That's okay for the next 6 months.
Is it?
It will be.
Yeah.
Ed,
Ed?
where are you at?
So I would say that my
The fact that he has no lip now that he shaved off his mustache.
Don't. It is a good thing
I
that
do
this
have a lip,
happened.
everyone.
He's realized how much people like actually didn't like his mustache
Oh my
because the
God,
amount of
the
comments
truth.
he's had.
The amount
I
of truth
have
that
told
has
you
come out
every day.
today. Nah, you haven't bluntly told me.
Pretty sure.
I've
I
told him
did.
about
Ed,
six
that thing
times
on your
today.
face looks terrible. That's what we're saying.
I did get a lot of that. Hey, poor John over here still got a mustache, guys. All right, Leo.
I'm not talking about John.
No, John looks good.
All right.
So I would say that my biggest stressor over the last 14 years has been my business.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm super passionate about. I know, you know, when I look at the values on the wall, I know that having a growth mindset is something that I'm so grateful to have. It's something I'm so grateful to have cultivated in myself, and something I believe that should be a part of everyone who's going to be a part of this organization in the future. But like, there is a cost to having a growth mindset when you're constantly striving to be better all the time. It is taxing. Like, you're always questioning yourself. Am I doing, as what I'm doing, enough? Like, what can I do more? How can I improve? How can I improve everything around me? And I guess just having that, and then of course, like, knowing that what I do in my job is also impacting the lives of all the employees that work in here, all the people that we serve in our organization, and all the people that we ultimately impact. Like, it's a weight that I carry on me for 12 hours of every single day. And, you know, I don't, for the last 12, 14 years, like, work is something that I do bring home every day. And it's something that does consume me, even on my off days all the time. But, you know, that's also a choice that I make. It's like, I'm also extremely grateful to have something I care so much about and really, really love doing. But I'm not going to lie, like, you know, having done this and stepped into this arena meant that, like, I never was going to fulfill my athletic career. It meant that I was never going to potentially fulfill relationships that could have blossomed around me, because this has always been the priority. So I would say that even to this point in time, and I can honestly only see it, you know, becoming more and more. But yeah, I would say that my work is probably my biggest stressor of my life. And, you know, there's rough and there's smooth, there's highs and there's lows. I would say the majority of the time is good. The majority of the time is spent on highs, but there's definitely some lows. And, you know, as a business owner, you have to confront those lows and you have to strive through them. It's just a cost of admission that if you want to do this, like, you've got to be resilient and you've got to be ready to have a bit of grit and get through tough times. And it's like, you know, I think, you know, talking about the times that we've all referred to, the changes that we're going through now, it's like I can see that mission and the purpose is stronger and clearer than it ever has been before. And when the mission and the purpose is there, it makes tough times a lot easier,
For sure.
a lot more worthwhile.
Nice. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for asking, guys.
Kind of had to.
Okay. Number 5, movement. Okay, so I think when we talk about movement, what are we referring to here, Liam?
That was like aggressive.
Because I
What are we
know you like
about?
talking about movement.
I think we're just talking. Well, we're not talking about like physical exercise in terms of like coming to the gym. I think what we were talking
Or
about.
washing
now-
the dishes or
or-
making a coffee.
Yeah, we were talking
Liam
about.
doesn't like that kind of movement, the washing
Yeah, I'm
dishes
not
kind.
good at washing
we've heard.
dishes. Not the best. Or hanging clothes. I hate
Yeah.
it. But hey, I'm good at a lot of other
You're good at
things.
sleeping.
I'm good at sleeping. So that's all that matters. I think it's just like movement, like deliberate movement, but that wouldn't be coming to the gym. So, for example, going on a walk.
Yeah.
Right, going on a hike, for example, that's not coming in to do physical exercise inside the gym. We're just talking about that we should all be, well, in my opinion, we should all be striving to move daily in some sort of movement form.
Yeah, I would class it as like intentional movement.
Yeah.
But I would actually say that gym, like going to the gym, would I guess fall under intentional movement.
It falls into it, but you got to remember the time span spent in the gym. I
Yes.
think it's like, okay, yes, that's the 1 hour of the day, maybe 90 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, 2 hours, whatever that person gives. But it's the accumulation of movement that they have. Intentional movement, like you said, being important. So are you parking your car a little bit further and just walking? Are you taking the stairs? Are you getting up from your desk every now and then to go and fill your water bottle up because you know it's important to hydrate? All those little things across the day, accumulatively, like we spoke about earlier, where we have habits that we do consistently. It's about doing less more often. So when I say do less, I'm not asking you to move around less, but what I'm saying is like you don't need to go to the gym to move. It could be literally just standing up from your desk every now and then, and accumulatively over a week that adds up.
What was the stat in terms of overall contribution to daily calories burned of gym sessions versus total movement?
Okay, so if you were to look at like a pyramid or a pie chart or all of those things, obviously this puts into context. It depends on how much this person trains. But for the average person, for your BMR, it's around 60 to 6. I think it's 60%, 60 to 70%, a range between there.
BMR 70%.
Yeah.
I've got my notes from Tammy's nutritional talk.
Nice. Perfect. Then it goes into the next one. So this is talking about an average person again, where it would actually be their NEAT, which is just intentional movement, but not
Deliberate
exercise.
exercise.
Yeah. Which is generally about 15%. Then it goes into your thermic effect of food. So this is the calories burnt to metabolize the food that you're having. That's 10%. And actually, your exercise is 5%.
That's crazy.
Fucking
When
nothing.
when you told me that stat, I was like really taken back by it. So just to like put it into context one last time, it's like the overall calories of all the calories that you burn on a daily basis, 70% of those calories you burn just by your body just keeping you alive.
Yep.
Not doing anything.
Coma calories.
Yep. 15% of your calories is burnt in the non-exercise movement. 10% is burnt just through trying to digest and process your food.
Yep.
And then 5% comes from a deliberate training session. You go into the gym for 1 hour. Of course, it can obviously vary, but that's crazy.
Yeah.
So why, I guess this leads back into like, why do we advocate the importance of like movement? I guess I would now probably agree with your statement, Liam.
Yeah.
Movement outside of training.
Well,
Because it's not only just calorie. We're not just saying like, this is important to burn your calories, but what else?
Well, I guess without boxing ourselves and saying like functional movement, it's like, we want daily movement to make adaptations to things that we're going to need when we're old, right? So yes, right now, perhaps the relevance of taking a few extra steps or walking up a couple stairs or picking up a box yourself might not seem like the most applicable thing, but down the line, you have built those movement patterns and honed them in for so long that when you're a little bit more frail, you have the functionality and the ability to carry out day-to-day functions without experiencing chronic pain or without having someone else have to do it for you. I think, again, it's just going back to what we said at the beginning. It's like, yes, we want to have a long lifespan, but we want that health span to match it. And we want to be able to do things later on.
Yeah, I think just going back to like what we're human, right? We're actually meant to be moving. Like we've got 2 feet. We're meant to be moving on a daily basis. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like people get confused when we say you should be moving daily. Does that mean you need to be training 7 days a week? No, absolutely not. But should you be moving your body in some sort of way, whether that be going for a walk, parking your car a bit further away from where you work?
Yeah.
It's just general movement. That's what we're actually built to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes, Tam. She had an epiphany.
I had an epiphany. Guys, the car analogy is coming in hot.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Okay, sorry. Guys, this was part of like my brainstorming thing. I came up with this car thing. But anyway, it's the same as a car, because to have a car that lasts long, you shouldn't be using it all the time. You also shouldn't leave it dormant for too long. It needs to move just a little bit consistently to keep it going.
Nice.
That's good.
That was solid.
So next question to each of you is, what are some of the conscious or the intentional pieces of movement that you put into your day? So maybe it could be like, how do you get to work?
Yeah.
Are there things that you do within your work day to try and accumulate more movement, and what does that look like? I'm going to start to my right, Charlotte.
Oh, okay.
Loves a walk.
Yeah, love a good walk. I walk to work pretty much every day, other than on a Tuesday. So that's at least half an hour.
Half an hour both ways.
Yep,
Nice.
pretty much. Some days I walk to the tram on the other side of the park, so I'm just not getting it right outside the gym. So at least I'm getting through the park, and then I'll get it on the tram. But most likely I'll have a half an hour walk to work and from work every day. Obviously, I'm very active when I'm coaching and things like that. We move around a lot. I know that after we finish training as a team, we like to go for a little walk around on the waterfront for 20 minutes all the time. So we make sure we get some sunshine in, but as well, just keep things moving. Other than that, I don't do too much. I have an elevator in my apartment right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't take the stairs anymore.
Do you track your steps? You have a step tracker?
So I used to, in terms of, I used to wear my watch a lot, but I actually noticed, and I just started wearing my ring again today, my Aura ring, but I was getting very obsessed with numbers and what I was doing every day. And I was working a lot on like my nutrition, but looking at my stats and everything like that. And to be honest, it was getting a big stress for me. So I kind of just, let nature take its course. I've turned off my steps for a little while, turn off training mode and everything like that, and just taken that away and let nature do its course. I will go back to it, but I used to definitely wear my watch a lot.
Nice.
And know what movement I did.
That's
So
really important.
so basically, walk to and from work, post workout walk. Obviously, we walk a lot. We're on our feet.
Yeah,
Most of
I'm
the
on my
coaching
feet
day.
a lot during the day.
Nice.
And then I actually think I get pretty much the same steps in on the weekend as well, even though I don't come in and do a lot of the coaching that I do. But if I'm going to see friends or anything, I'll make sure to walk to go see them. I very rarely get like the bus or a taxi. I'll do a lot of active recovery, go on hikes and stuff like that. So I will go. I live very close to my family and my friends, so it's at least half an hour walk there and back all the time. I'm constantly on the move.
Nice. Tamarind.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to put this into context for the listeners. Hong Kong is not that big, so things are actually quite walkable a lot of the time. It's not like we're going out of our way to walk down a highway to like get places. Like it's actually pretty easy. As someone who really loves to be outside, and I like to immerse myself in nature, and I like to be in not crowded places, being that highly stressed individual that I am. If I have an environment that there's a lot of people, I feel myself, I have the whole, like my chest is closing, my hands are sweaty, like I feel almost claustrophobic. So I tend to choose to walk a lot of places or ride my bike a lot of places. I'm not doing it as an intentional means of burning calories or getting steps in or anything. It's actually just to feel at peace to start my day or to end my day, especially considering my job is requiring me to be quite an extrovert when I am a little bit more of an introverted person outside of the gym. It's a nice moment for me to have some time for myself, which I love. So for me, definitely on my feet nearly all day. I would say if I'm awake for, I guess, how many hours? If I'm asleep for 7.5, how many does that mean I'm awake for, everyone?
You're about 14 hours.
Cool. I think I'm standing.
I think this is the longest we've been sitting.
Yeah,
all
right
day.
now for this conversation would be the longest.
I was
would have
actually
sat
thinking,
down.
because we said, should we stand for this podcast
Yeah.
or should we sit?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we should be
I'm
standing.
now scared to stand based on what my knee. might
I actually
do.
think this is the longest
Yeah.
I've sat down.
So to sum it up, sorry, I definitely walk a lot. I definitely ride my bike a lot. I definitely move a lot in general, but not as a conscious effort to burn calories. It's just my preferred means to help me manage my stress.
Nice. Carmichael.
I move quite a lot. I mean, I walk to and from work. It's not that far, but still walking. When I come to work, I'm quite busy. I'm always coaching, so I'm always on the floor, so I'm on my feet. We'll train. Then after training, we've been doing it we didn't always used to go for a walk after training.
Yeah.
I feel like we've got less time at the moment. Generally, we
true,
used to sometimes.
true.
I think a lot of our post-workout 20 minutes a day, which was more like 60 minutes a day,
It was like an hour
was
easy.
during COVID, where we didn't have
Yeah.
some rush
True,
back
true,
Now
to.
it's
But
like, you got 10 minutes? Let's go.
Let's
we've
walk.
got, we've literally
One
actually
lap.
got 20 minutes, so we
Yeah.
actually have to do 20 minutes a day.
Yes, it'll be walk after training, then coaching, and then I'll walk home. But even on the weekends, like I love to walk, like
Yeah.
especially in Hong Kong, where it's like I don't know the whole city, so I like to just
Mm.
walk to different parts, and I feel that you get to experience the city and see different parts than what you would if you're just jumping in an Uber.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I when I used to coach more, I used to move a lot.
Mm.
And I noticed that when I started to move more into, I guess, like management and more like admin and be at my desk more,
Old
I noticed,
age.
yeah, well, and old age, that I would notice that my daily movement would came down actually quite significantly.
Yeah.
So I make a very conscious effort to move as much as I can. Like one of the amazing things both myself and Tam do, and sometimes Lotte as well, is like riding my bike to work, and I still pinch myself every day I do that. I'm like, this is
Honestly.
so cool
I think it's really cool.
that we can do this, and like it's down the waterfront, the view's epic, it's like super smooth
incredible.
and it's flat.
Mm.
So being able to do that, I probably would say on average I either bike to or from work probably 3 times a week, 3 to 4 times a week on
Oh,
average.
really?
Well, just because the weather's being
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
on when the weather's nice, I'll do it more
Mm.
often. I also take the MTR to work quite a lot.
Mm.
So that's a 35-minute trip. Obviously, that requires me to walk to the MTR station, then walk from the MTR.
Mm.
And I actually really enjoy that process. I like the MTR. It gives me a chance to like listen to a podcast and just be by myself. And I enjoy the walking back and forth. I will deliberately try, like if I have, sometimes I have 3 hours of back-to-back meetings where I'm sat at a computer on video calls or, you know, sat around a table. I'll always consciously, even if it's just, if I've got a 10-minute break between meetings, I'll get outside
Yeah.
and just like walk around the block once or twice just to like move my legs and flush my legs out and try and get like some natural light in. I always take the stairs in the MTR, so there's the option for escalators, and I'll generally never take the escalator. I'll deliberately take the stair option. I also know, you know, with all the injuries I had in my knee, that I know that walking is actually really good for it.
Right.
And if I can continually move it through range and varieties of different ranges, then, you know, my knee just generally feels a lot better. So I'm very conscious of it. I would say like I do actually like to look at my steps just to give myself like a gauge as to how much I'm really doing.
What's the number?
So I'm generally between, I would probably say I'm generally between like 10 to 14,000 steps
Pretty
a day.
Nice.
Obviously bike rides don't take into account your steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do find on weekends, on a Sunday, I'll sometimes probably be more like 5,000-6,000. And I want to try, but I'll always try and get movement in. So it might be like, I'll do like a yoga float, or I'll do like a
Dancing.
Caribbean
A dance class.
a dance class on YouTube, or I'll just like move around in my office,
Yeah.
but I'll try and get some movement in. But I would say
Yeah.
generally my step count's quite a bit lower on a Sunday.
Yeah.
I also feel when like my mind is really busy, like
Yeah.
going
You
for a
just need to
walk
move.
helps.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
Doesn't it just?
when you're
Yeah.
on the computer or you're trying to do content or whatever it is, or you've had meetings or you've maybe just had a busy day, just like unplugging. Like it's great to walk with a podcast, but sometimes just unplugging, earpods off, and just walking, it just
Yeah.
feels so soothing and
Yeah.
relaxing.
I-
I
yeah,
was
go.
gonna say I would spend, let's just say, an hour and a half to 2 hours average a day walking, just walking with nothing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I do notice I've walked past you or driven past you on
Yeah.
this little same strip of Kennedy
Yeah.
Town so many times.
Ah,
You're often on phone calls when you do that.
wholesome experience.
You know what's really funny though is like every time I see you, and if I'm in the car, I'll open the window and be like, Tammy, and she'll literally look and be like, like not even be like, hey Ed, that's just so weird that we've crossed on this exact road again. It's just like, what's up? And like
What's up,
carries on
Ed?
walking. I'm like, what the
I'm being really present in the moment with myself.
There was another time when more recently, like Tammy was walking, I'm on the bike, and I'm like driving, I'm like 20 meters away, being like, how weird is this? On the same strip, and we're crossing each other. And I like go to slow down. She literally sticks up her hand, doesn't even smile, high fives me, and literally picks up speed as she walks around. I'm like braked on my bike, and I'm just
All
stood
right.
there like,
All right, everybody, can I
okay,
please
cool.
put this into context?
I'll just continue to bike ride by myself.
Every single time this has happened, I've been in like a really deep and meaningful chat with a friend, and I acknowledge but I continue.
Yeah.
That
Alright.
is so
Well,
funny.
yeah,
So sorry,
I'm sure
Ed.
your friend appreciates it.
You're not my friend.
All right, cool. I will just also say one last thing.
Yeah.
When you told me about that stat on NEAT versus eat, like
Mind-blowing.
that made me consciously want to move more.
That's so good. I'm
Like
so
it
glad.
really did. Yeah.
It's the golden ticket for a lot
Yeah,
of
I
people.
started asking myself. I was like, stop putting so much stress on how much work you're doing in the
Mm.
actual gym and on your workout. Like, move a little bit more.
Okay. Why would you say
Yeah.
it's also better to do that for people that are listening?
It will lower impact. It's
Yeah.
attainable. It's easy.
Yeah.
You don't need anything other than your two
Yeah.
legs to move.
Yeah.
Like, it allows you to get outside. Like, I
Yeah.
think generally as a population, we spend so much time indoors. Like,
Yeah.
we need to get out more.
Yeah.
Low barriers to entry.
There we go. It's
Yeah.
something you can do all the time.
And you know what? Like, it's fucking great squatting, snatching, and doing bar muscle ups, but it doesn't have that much carryover to real life, if we're honest. Like, in
Yeah.
the thing that cripples most of us in old age is we stop being able to walk and
Yeah.
run, and that shit is just important.
Yeah.
How much does it make you feel better than if you were to have done a training session instead of that?
I think different levels of accomplishment. It's a different feeling. I think, like, taking myself through a workout where it's like it's deliberately doing, in most cases, something really challenging and
Yeah.
hard. Like, there's a different level of reward and accomplishment. And there's also a different feeling of how I should expect to feel post-workout. Like, I'm not expecting to feel amazing post-workout. Like, I actually want to feel a bit fatigued, drained, and tired. Whereas that's not the intention of what I'm looking for when I'm going for a walk. So, I mean, I would definitely say that, like, the percentage of how much time I spend doing walking and easy aerobic activities versus hard training has, like, really shifted with every year I've gotten older. Like, I'm doing less and less in the gym these days. I'm doing more and more outside of the gym, and I think that trend will continue. But I also realize that I neglected basic human function for so many years when I became addicted to training in the gym and CrossFit. And I realized just recently, I've been sharing with all you guys, is like, I've forgotten, my body's lost the ability to, like, run and change direction. And that was something I acknowledged, that, like, the more time I spent in the gym, the less time I spent playing sport, I've lost that ability. And that's sad. But I can also feel that, like, my knees and my ankles and my hips were also feeling the effects of not being able to do that stuff. So having reintroduced that stuff, which is like, that was 7 days a week for me for pretty much in my entire childhood, teenage years, and early 20s when I was playing sport all the time. And I just basically took all of it out. And I think putting it back in now, I feel a lot more like primal. I feel like my body's doing the things that it should be doing. And it's rewarding me because it's making me feel better. Like, touch wood, like, my knees actually been pretty damn good. Like, I've had to not... How many
squats have been looking pretty
when
good
was the
as
last
well.
time I had to do a box squat, guys? And that was normally
Yeah.
every 4
True.
weeks when I
Hitting
was like,
depth
true.
in his
Hitting
warm-up
depth.
squats. It's pretty good.
Yeah. So,
And you started to, like, play tennis and football again. Stuff,
yeah.
like,
Well,
a little
actually,
bit.
it was playing a game of football and pulling
You're
up
like,
with a little
"Oh,
niggle, and I'm like,
yeah.
God.
why can't I do something that seems so simple that I should be able to do? And I
Yeah.
thought back, it's like, well, you just avoided this for the last 10 years. Like, you shouldn't be able to do it. So, like, get back to work. So,
Yeah.
Again, nail the basics.
nail the basics. Exactly. Okay, guys, we're on our last one.
Oh my goodness. I might actually get to bed before bedtime.
Okay, the last one is food hygiene. Liam, what do we mean by food hygiene?
So when I first heard, like, someone saying food hygiene, I was like, what is this, the way, like, I actually prepare my food? I was like, this is a bit strange, but then obviously learning a lot more about it. Well, it's just how you actually, what's your relationship with food?
Yeah.
Like, how do you sit down? How do you eat? Are you chewing your food? Are you on screens, for example, when you're having your lunch? Are you on the go? I mean, Tammy, I know she's going to kick us off, but she loves to talk about, like, intuitive eating.
Yeah.
Like,
How
are
mindful
yeah,
are
how
you?
mindful are you? Is there do you have a process? Or are you just like Tammy said, just mindless when you're
Yeah.
going into eating?
I think we like to, it's hard to articulate this in words without someone reading it, right? So if we think of the word mindful as in being aware of things, as opposed to mindful with a double L, right? Your mind being full of things, where are you at when you're eating? I think that is what we kind of talk about when it comes to food hygiene, because naturally for your body, it's not really going to pick up on its hunger and satiety cues if you're constantly distracted by stuff. As people, we are pretty much made to single task. So by setting aside some time to focus on your meal, think about the textures and the feelings and the flavors that are going into your mouth is actually really important. Being able to sit down and put your utensils down and not scoff your food down is really important. Being able to share that experience with someone else is great. You know, it's all those little things and little practices that you're putting into place. Are you eating at a table, or are you walking and eating? You know, there's just all these little things that contribute to your overall food hygiene that make us more, I guess, just aware of what we're putting into our bodies, and we're then channeling into how we feel, because it's not just about the food, it's about how the food makes us feel as well.
Love it. Lotte, anything to add?
Not too much then.
So let's talk about, like, what does your food hygiene practice look like? So Tammy, kick us off. Like, what are some of the things that you're thinking about, or at this, again, like in this season of
Right
life
now?
for you? Yeah. What does it look like?
Yeah, I guess I'm in a very explorative state of this whole concept of food hygiene. I know for me, I am someone who would normally like make my food and kind of eat it at the kitchen counter, not the one that we said, not the table, but like the counter. I would stand and eat it. Or, you know, with the nature of our job, sometimes you're rushing between clients and rushing to do things. So right now, the, I guess, mindfulness practice that I'm practicing, and it's been bloody amazing, is when I'm eating everything, I'm just like actually almost like closing my eyes and like really thinking about how it tastes and how it feels. My mouth is like salivating right now because it's dinner time. But yeah, it's just taking in that moment and really just appreciating what I'm putting in my mouth and listening to, I guess, my satiety cues. I think before, definitely because of doing so much work with like nutrition towards being an athlete, it was very much like, this is what you should have. And I was like, okay, I'm number driven. I'm like goal oriented. I'll do it. Right. But with that, the downside of it is I think I kind of lost my ability to feel what it was like to feel full, or to know when to stop, or when I was hungry, or any of that. So I've been trying to get those basic functions back. And when I'm having my meals now, I try to eat a lot slower. I'm not going to say it's fully undistracted, because it's not, but I have moments of mindfulness when I'm eating, if that makes sense.
Are you still weighing and measuring your food at the moment?
I weigh and measure most of my stuff, but again, I am very data oriented. Like, I don't have a subjective attachment to it. It's very objective, and I'm liking the fact that I can still create those changes. Like, it's okay. But if you were to say, hey, you can't do it anymore, I would also be like, okay, that's okay. I know that I can step away with it from it, and that's what makes me know, like, okay, cool, it actually is still objective. So yeah, in terms of the practice that I have right now, like I said, just being a little bit more mindful, savoring the moment, enjoying it, feeling grateful for it, and actually understanding what it feels like to be a certain percentage of fullness. And I know for me now, this is just my learning for myself, I'm going to share it, is my 80% full, which is actually like the point that you're meant to stop eating, is when the food that I'm eating, because I love food, becomes less tasty. So the same thing, first mouthful, really tasty. I'm eating. It's really, really tasty. And then suddenly there's a mouthful that I'm like, it's not as tasty anymore. And then I sit with it for a little and I'm like, yeah, okay, kind of full.
And I think it's interesting that you mentioned also when you were an athlete, because there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that have got athletic endeavours. And when we see that athletic population, what generally happens is, well, they're going to take some calories off the internet. They're going to get some macros. And they're not going to really have that present moment with their food. They're essentially just trying to get as many calories in as possible. And they forgot, well, maybe they've got signs like their body's telling them, maybe they've got gut issues, maybe they're just not digesting that food properly, maybe when they go to the toilet it's fucking horrible, but they've just not grabbed that or created that awareness to say that actually by me eating X amount of calories, I don't actually feel that good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's hard. How do you step away from a practice that's been ingrained for so long, you know? And again, it's the whole thing of like, take it back to the primitive state. Like, that is the natural way that we should be working. And our body is pretty good. Now, in saying that, we build bad habits over time, right? Like, that's how people, you know, I can think of one of our coaches who's like, well, I don't really eat until like 4 p.m. Like, that's just what I don't feel hungry before that. But it's like, yeah, of course it doesn't. We go back to the circadian rhythm. Like, if you've trained your body to be like that, it's not going to release the hormones at the right time, but you can train it a different way. And I think that that's what's awesome is the pliability of what we have. like, again, coming back to that science experiment, we can work with ourselves to build ourselves into what we want ourselves to be.
And I mean, even on that point as well, like hunger signals,
Yeah.
that's something that could be just so ingrained from your past habits.
Yeah.
And like anyone who's been through any form of weight loss phase will know that when you generally create a reduction in caloric intake, like you're going to have to fight through some hunger signals
You're going to have
actually.
to ignore them, right?
Yeah, because your
Right.
body's telling you, hang on, you've been feeding me this amount and now you're giving me less. Like, I want more.
Yeah.
But it's about acknowledging, like, actually, what's the intention right now? And, you know, there's sometimes that hunger signals aren't always going to be the best indicator as to what
Yeah.
you should be doing.
Yep.
Nice. Lotte.
My food hygiene, or like my relationship with my food, is a very interesting one.
It is.
I think I'm still definitely at that exploration phase of just going back to the basics of understanding what I need, like consistency in it when I need it, and sticking to that. I definitely have had like a very strange relationship eating in front of people, and I'm definitely healing that. I was someone that even when I was at school, I would go without breakfast. I wouldn't really get hungry until after lunchtime. Sometimes when I finished school, and my school finished at 5:30 p.m. Like I just, again, I'm retraining my body to, you know, after 27 years of, or maybe 25 years, because it's been a long process, but the habits that I've got into, and I'm retraining, and now I'm finding out those signals that are becoming a lot more natural to me. Like I get hungry, you know, I'll eat my breakfast, things like that. So it's been a very interesting journey, and I'm still on that journey. But it's just stripping it down to the basics of understanding what I need when I need it and being consistent with that. I don't want to make anything too fluffy around it. But it's rebuilding that relationship that I have with food and nutrition.
And I know you just alluded to this with like your watch, but you've recently stepped away from you. I think you transitioned into weighing and measuring, and you've actually recently stepped away from it.
Yeah, so I actually started doing some weighing and measuring with Tammy and things like that. And I actually was Tammy who reached out to me being like, okay, I think, you know, let me help you. And I was all for it. And just being able to learn from other members of the team. So I started to understand, again, like just the metrics, like the numbers that we went through before of like what my body needs, and how I was so below that. And just my body was just living in this survival state, and it was just basically a ticking time bomb. And understanding how much I need when I need it. And with that came, you know, a lot of data, a lot of numbers, and I started to get very obsessed with it. And it was causing me more stress and kind of working in not the right kind of way. And I was aware of that before it maybe got a little bit worse. And I just said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go based on feel. I feel like I've got some tools in my toolbox now to be able to manage it myself. And I'm not going to go back into those habits that I know previously were quite like stressful or self-sabotaging, that I need this in the morning, I need this after training, this in my afternoon, and this at lunchtime. You know, even just creating that consistency for me is a win. And I was just getting very caught up in, okay, well, if I'm having this, this, and this, and it doesn't translate over to my watch, like what does that mean for tomorrow? You know, and it was just causing me way too much of a whirlwind. So I just kind of took a step back, and I'm definitely getting more tools in my toolbox, and I would go back to it at some point, but it's just an experimental phase. But when you're weighing and tracking, you're setting people up for the education that someday they can go just back to listening to their body, and they build those habits and their patterns.
So can I ask, was the stress that you were experiencing with weighing and measuring when you didn't hit your targets? That's where the stress came
it
in.
wasn't enough. Or maybe one day it was too much, and then, okay, how do I adjust the next day? And I would get really stressed out. Like, I mean, people joke about it all the time, like I never eat or something like that, but I would just get stressed out, like, oh my God, I have to cram all this in, and something like that. But it
was actually really interesting to take Lotte through the journey and to watch it unfold, because I know for us, I was actually like, hey, like we should only use it for this many weeks, and like a lot of clients they want to have that data still, and you're like, okay, well, like this is a choice you're going to make. If you really think that this is something that's sustainable for you, we're going to go with it. And it's been interesting that it kind of came around to a point where she was like, okay, I've learnt these things from this, because the main thing for me was to just show her the disparity, like the difference between where she was and where she needed to be, and give her the tools to build her to be there. And I thought it was just a really powerful moment as a person for Lotte to do what she's done, to come in and have that honest and vulnerable conversation, to be like, hey, I know that what I'm doing right now is to better my health, but at the same time, this is falling to the wayside. Like right now, I'm becoming obsessed with it. I don't think that I should have my watch. I don't think that I should be tracking.
Yeah.
I know like roughly the quantities that I should be having, and that's kind of what I'm going for.
Yeah. And I think it's like also important to say, like, one of my main goals, I think one of the biggest things that popped up being like, okay, I need to address this, and I went to Tammy, was I wasn't getting my menstrual cycle. And there's definitely education behind how we can manipulate nutrition and everything behind that, of getting that back and being consistent and everything like that. But that was the big thing. It's one of the most natural things for a female body to be doing, and mine wasn't. You know, that's quite scary. And being able to just realize what my body needed, and getting that back somewhat consistently. I mean, maybe not at the minute, but you know, it did get back consistently for a couple months, and then it's kind of gone away again, but it'll come back again. And I have those tools, so it's good. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, my relationship, my food hygiene relationship.
Give us a go. Go on. I watch Ed every weekend, by the way, everyone. Tell us, Ed.
I would say, I mean, when I look back at my journey, it's just evolved and changed so much. But I would really say, like, at the heart of all of it is just with training and everything else I do. Like, I love to use myself as a guinea pig.
Yeah.
And like, I enjoy experimentation.
Yeah.
And I enjoy experimentation because it gives me obviously awareness, knowledge, education that really I want to be able to pass on to other people. And that's like a massive theme for a lot of the things that I do.
Agreed.
And so where I'm at is like at this moment in time, and it probably has been for about 4 to 5 years, as I weigh and measure most of my food.
Yeah.
Definitely don't really have an attachment to it. Like, I can happily go out and, you know, go eat out and have a meal somewhere else and not worry about that kind of stuff. I've also known I've been on holidays for 4 to 5 weeks, not weighed and measured anything, and been pretty successful. You know, come back and step on the scales, I'm pretty much to the decimal exactly the same as what I was before I left. And so I think I have a good awareness. But I think something that's interesting I want to bring up was something that we talked about quite recently, which was, and I ended up having this conversation with one of my clients just a couple of days ago. And so we basically had a team gig where we went out to Sai Kung, and Al had cooked up this epic meal. Izzy had brought a shit ton of donuts for dessert. And I basically just went to town on this meal. And that's kind of what I always do. It's like, well, when I go out and if there's good food in front of me, I'm going to eat as much as I possibly can. And it got to the point where we then had a little stroll down to the beach, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so uncomfortably full. I'm actually struggling to walk at the moment. Like, my guts were just like hanging a foot out from my body. And Tammy just asked a question like, why did you do it? And I'm like, it's a great question. I'm like, I just wanted to eat all that. The food just looked so good that I didn't want to not eat it. And then Tammy pulled up this diagram, which, to be honest, like, I've shown my clients a million times in my life, and having done precision nutrition myself, like, I know it so well. But it was like, oh, Ed, you know, like, this scale, which basically says like you should eat up until this point, which is like, you know, roughly 80%, kind of where you want to get to, and beyond that, like, you're overeating. And I'm just like, just looking at that diagram again, and Tammy showed me, and it made me really question, why do I do it? Like, why do I actually have this tendency of just eating so much food when I go out to other places? And by this point, I'd had like many alcoholic beverages, so like cognitively wasn't the sharpest. But even at that point in time, I was like, this is like something I need to like meditate and think about, I think. Yeah. And I kind of even got home that night. We shared an Uber home, and like we started talking about it more. Then the next like week, I was just thinking a lot, like, why do I do that? And the times when I do it, it's like, why am I so controlled, disciplined, at ease, and never eat to that point of like feeling disgustingly full? But when I go out for a meal or I'm at a social event, I have a tendency to 90% of the time eat to a point where I'm uncomfortably full. And so I thought about lots of things. I thought about like childhood. Well, like, mum and dad would always say like, you should never leave an empty plate because like, you know, eyes bigger than your stomach type
bad
thing.
Manners as well.
And it's bad manners,
Very
right?
bad manners.
And so like, I would never ever leave food on my plate. We also, like, how we had dinner as a family was we had like a lazy Susan in the middle with like a glass thing with different, like a bowl of rice or a bowl of pasta, the protein dish, and that would just sit there. So it's kind of like a all you can eat buffet, to be honest. And so like I would just, and to be honest, like my eating habits weren't great when I was younger. I would kind of skip all the lunch. I wouldn't really eat lunch because I'd rather play sport. So like nighttime, I would just like scoff and scoff and scoff. And I also think that even now in my adult years, it's like I like the idea of going out to a restaurant and trying like nice food, because to be honest, when I cook and eat at home, like it's good, but it's not that good. And it's like,
Sorry,
if I'm
Cammy.
going, sorry, Cammy, that's why I tried to save myself from falling down that hole halfway through that sentence. But you know, when I go out, I want to try more food. I want to try multiple starters. I want to try multiple main courses, because it's like I don't eat out very often, so I want to try it. And so there's lots of things that started to contribute. I started to kind of connect the dots, be like, okay, I think that's why I'm at this place now. But at the end of the day, when I go out and enjoy a meal, I want to enjoy the meal and I want to feel good.
Yeah.
And what I'm actually doing right now is I'm kind of enjoying the meal, but then I'm not feeling good. My guts are in pieces for the next 3 days, and actually, like, I'm coming out of these meals in a worse place than I was going into them. Like, what am I doing to myself? It's almost self-sabotage in a way.
Yeah.
And so, like, the first thing I realized was like, just go back to basic instinct. Like, I don't want to be taking scales out to dinners. That's not the intention. But like, just be a bit more mindful when you're out and you're eating. And mindfulness can mean like, okay, like, have your desserts, have your starters, have a bag of crisps, whatever it is that you want to eat, 2 bags of crisps, and just
the old one more.
and just, you know, account for that and have a little bit less for your main course, or save some space for dessert. You know, just like the basics. And so kind of where I'm at right now is like, that is my biggest work on. It's like when I'm going out and I'm eating in other environments, to still be mindful and, you know, eat 80% full and be successful with it. That's kind of where I'm at. And which is funny because, you know, I've talked and preached nutrition to people for 14 years. And like, this is probably the number one principle that I always talk about.
Yeah.
Yet it's taken me 34 years to realize, Ed, you still have this weird habit that you haven't really leaned into yet. And I think you need to address it.
I think a lot of people also like, are you eating because you're hungry, or are you eating because like you're bored, or you just are greedy?
I just love food. Genuinely. Like, I just love, like, I love deep fried shit. I love crisps. I love dessert.
Yeah.
I love like fat. Like, there's just things that like I really enjoy. Like, my stomach's just started rumbling thinking about
I'm getting
all this.
really hungry.
Yeah, I'm
I-
pretty
I'm
hungry.
talking about
Just
this.
saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have a couple things to add on
Yeah.
this. I think, you know, you guys have all spoken about some really important things. And I think that, you know, whether you're weighing and measuring your stuff, whether you're doing your hand portions, whether you're doing plate portions, whether you're doing, you know, a specific meal plan, at the base, if that was like in a pyramid form, at the base of that should be mindful and intuitive eating. So really, the skill set and the toolbox that you should have would be to listen to your natural cues of whether you're hungry or whether you're full, and, you know, think about the way that things are making you feel. Like, do you feel good? Do you feel bad? If you feel bad, you have to change something. And I think a little bit of what Ed has said, and I think it's just like hearing his language of him even just speaking about it then, is it almost sounds like he's a little bit restrictive during the week. The fact that he says he's like so diligent and so X. If he maybe had a little bit more flexibility in the week, he wouldn't feel the need to do that on the weekend.
Yeah, I want to jump in there as well. It's like, I definitely know that having gone from being an intuitive eater, like, I think back to like even the last 14 years of being in this industry, it's like there was a phase of paleo, which was like basically mass calorie restriction.
Yeah.
There was a phase of like calorie restriction for 6 days a week, and then like an obscene cheat day, which would like, and then there's been like zone diet, trying to like weigh and measure on a very basic way, and then it got to like macronutrient prescription, and I've been on that for a while now. And totally, I think, you know, even just when you guys were speaking, I was reflecting on myself. It's like, why do I enjoy calories? Well, it's like, I enjoy weighing and measuring because, again, like experimentation. Like, I enjoy going through phases where I get to 86, 87 kilograms. I'm a little bit fluffy, but I feel great. And I enjoy the process of, okay, like, how can I now move myself to be a little bit lighter, a little bit leaner, Like, how can I play with things like still having good sleep, still having a sex drive, and like experimenting, just like we do in the fitness room. I enjoy that process because I honestly, like, I sometimes just kind of get bored looking and feeling like one way all the time, and I'm like, I'm due an experiment. So I like doing those things, and I like the macros because it gives me a control point to be a little bit more accurate with my things. But I do also understand that, and I think this is the beautiful thing about having holidays, is that I enjoyed holidays because I'd also look forward to like completely breaking away from all those things and like trying to navigate it myself. But I haven't had a holiday in almost 3 years. So I think actually that's something that's definitely played into this. I've never gone almost 3 years of weighing and measuring 6 days a week.
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
So I think, you know, I hadn't even thought about that until just saying it.
Well, I think the interesting part is actually the idea is to move away from those things. You know, I know for my trip when I was away for 2 to 3 months, like I didn't do it once and I loved it. Like it was great. But like you said, it's just like learning how you feel. The reason I'm back on it now is because I got back. I was like lost quite a bit of weight, not intentionally, just my NEAT was through the roof. I was still eating for like what felt good, but obviously like my eating schedule was a little different. I'm hanging out with other people. I was just eating when it made sense. Did I care? Not really. Like
Mexican food goes straight through you.
Actually pretty healthy. But no, what I'm trying to say is the reason I am tracking right now is because I have a mission that I want to gain some weight. I want to put on some muscle mass again because I lost a lot of weight. So that's why I guess I'm being as specific as I am. But I think as a coach, what I'm also trying to practice is those daily habits and little things around my food that I think are important and applicable to the most. Because at the end of the day, not many people need to be doing their macronutrients. Most people need to be doing those small things. So what I also do right now is I'm like, okay, well, I know that in my lunchbox compared to my hand, this is what my protein looks like. So I'm taking those practices into what I'm doing. So I'm building awareness now, okay, of hand tracking rather than weighing. And I think for someone like you, Ed, that is the perfect scenario. I think as well, the last thing is consistency. We speak about that word all the time. Like why change a nice consistent week over a weekend? Why not just have your whole week be consistent? And that means allowing flexibility during the week a lot for other people as well. And this is going beyond hygiene, right? But just in general, think about the way that food makes you feel. Think about what you're doing during it, what you're doing around it. Are you being mindful with it? And that is generally where people pick up what they're doing, good or bad, and what they need to change.
Yeah, I think when I think of food hygiene as well, we're thinking about the digestion process.
Yeah.
Like, what are we trying to do? Why are we saying this is a basic? Well, we're trying to strive towards wellness, right? And we know how important that gut health is, right? You digesting that food, and we know that it doesn't actually start when you put the food in your mouth. Yeah. It's like Tammy said, it's like when you're actually preparing the food, it's when you start smelling the food, that's when this process is actually starting. Yeah. And someone told me, it's like, you know, people say like, oh, you are what you eat. It's not actually that. It's what you eat and what you can actually digest from that food is what you are, right? So I think that's an important note to finish things on. It's like people eat a lot of calories, but they're not actually absorbing that food, right?
Yeah. Actually, that's a really interesting point. So, you know, I recently did this low FODMAP diet where I was basically going through a gut repair process because of all the stress of COVID closures and CrossFit Open and quarterfinals. My digestion just wasn't functioning. It's cumulative effect of all of that. Did this basically gut reset protocol, got everything working again, and what I realized coming back to it is, well, I needed a lot less calories to maintain the same energy levels, hormonal function, and weight. Yeah. And I was like, this is so weird. Like, I actually don't need all this food, and I've, you know, probably reduced it by like 300 calories a day. Yeah. And I was feeling great and exactly the same. And you know, crazy. And there are obviously other signs that was telling me like my digestive system was working again, but that's a perfect example that a healthy functioning digestive system will need less food than a digestive system that isn't actually processing and digesting.
It'll take much more from it.
Yeah.
One last thing to even go on to that is just bringing yourself into, we've spoken about it before, the two states, right? Parasympathetic, sympathetic state. A mindful eating practice or a part of eating hygiene is going into your meal not feeling stressed. Yeah. So breathing exercises or just calming down or whatever you need to de-stress before you have that meal is a really good way to get your blood going to the right places and to help with that digestive process.
Nice.
You just literally kickstarted like 100 more thoughts.
I know, so sorry.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
Tammy's already said twice, this is the last thing, so we're going to make it the last
just
thing.
Got to stop it there.
Sorry.
All right, guys. Well, listen, on behalf of myself, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Loved the conversation.
It's good.
Folks, if you're listening and you have any thoughts, you have questions, thinking about your own 6 lifestyle essentials and areas that you need help, or you'd like to just pose a question, feel free to reach out to any of us.
Yep.
We'd be more than happy to help you navigate it.
Class.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.